Hello, welcome to Capital Sensei. Today, we're going to dive deep into one of the most important books of the last 50 years for anyone interested in economics, investing, or just understanding the world better. We're talking about The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. We'll explore what a Black Swan event is, why our brains are hardwired to ignore them, and most importantly, how we can build our lives and our finances to not only survive, but actually benefit from a world that is far more random than we think. We try to answer questions in the comments whenever we can. So if anything we discuss today sparks a question, or if you have your own story about dealing with a totally unexpected event, please share it below. Your experiences and doubts help everyone learn and build a smarter community. Let's start with a story. For centuries, everyone in the old world, in Europe, knew a simple, irrefutable fact. All swans are white. Every single swan ever observed had been white. You could see thousands, even millions of them, and each new observation just confirmed this solid piece of knowledge. It was a truth as solid as the ground they stood on. Then, in 1697, a Dutch explorer sailed to Australia and saw something that by all accounts shouldn't exist. He saw a black swan. In an instant, a single observation completely shattered a belief that had been built on thousands of years of evidence. This is the very essence of Taleb's core idea. A black swan is an event with three specific characteristics. First, it's an outlier. It's something that lies so far outside the realm of our normal expectations that nothing in the past could have convincingly pointed to its existence. Think about the rise of the internet, the September 11th attacks, or the 2008 financial crisis. Before they happened, they weren't on anyone's radar. Second, a black swan carries an extreme impact. It's not a minor blip. It fundamentally changes the game. The discovery of black swans was a small biological footnote, but the black swans Taleb is concerned with are the ones that reshape economies, topple governments, and create or destroy immense fortunes overnight. They are the events that truly matter in history. And third, and this is where it gets really interesting for us as humans. After the fact, we invent explanations for it that make it seem predictable. Our brains crave order and narrative. So we look back at the black swan and say, oh, of course, the signs were there all along. This is called retrospective predictability, or hindsight bias. We fool ourselves into thinking we understood it, which makes us dangerously confident that we can predict the next one. But we can't. To really get this, Taleb gives us a brilliant and slightly dark analogy. The story of the turkey. Imagine a turkey that is brought to a farm. Every single morning, a friendly human comes out and gives it delicious food. From the turkey's perspective, life is great and getting better every day. As a good little scientist, the turkey gathers data. Day 1, fed. Day 2, fed. Day 3, fed. After 100 days, its data set is looking pretty solid. After 500 days, it's feeling extremely confident in its model of the world. Humans are wonderful beings whose sole purpose is to ensure its well-being. Its confidence in this model grows stronger with each passing day. On day 1000, its belief is at an all-time high. The evidence is overwhelming. And then, the next day, right before Thanksgiving, something completely unexpected happens. The friendly human arrives, but not with food. The turkey is about to experience a massive revision of its beliefs. The problem is, this revision will be its last. This turkey is a perfect illustration of what philosophers call the problem of induction. We use past information to make judgments about the future. And for the turkey, This worked perfectly for 1,000 days. The issue is that the past, no matter how much data you have, can be a terribly misleading guide to the future, especially when a structural break is possible. The turkey's model failed to account for the one piece of information that mattered most, the one piece that was completely outside its experience. Many of us, as investors and citizens, are living like that turkey. Now, this brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in the book, the difference between two imaginary lands called Mediocristan and Extremistan. Understanding this difference is key to understanding why most of our conventional wisdom about risk is wrong. Mediocristan is a place where randomness is tame and well-behaved. Things are governed by averages and the famous bell curve. Think about human height. If you gather 1,000 people in a room, the average height might be, say, 5 feet 9 inches. Now, what if you add the tallest person in the world to that room? They might be over 8 feet tall, but they won't dramatically change the average. The average might tick up an inch or two, but it remains a meaningful number. In Mediocristan, no single observation can have a disproportionate impact. The collective is always more powerful than the individual. Human weight, daily calorie intake, the number of mistakes a typist makes per page. These all live in Mediocristan. But now, let's visit Extremistan. This is a very different place. Here, randomness is wild, savage, and unpredictable. Here, a single observation can change everything. Think about wealth. If you gather 1,000 people in a room and measure their average net worth, it might be, say, $100,000. Now, what happens if Jeff Bezos walks into that room? The average net worth doesn't just tick up a bit, it skyrockets into the hundreds of millions. The average becomes a completely useless, misleading statistic. Jeff Bezos' wealth is so extreme that it makes everyone else's a rounding error. One person is more impactful than the other 1,000 combined. Extremistan is the land of Black Swans. It's where you find things like book sales. One J.K. Rowling sells more than millions of other authors combined. Social media followers, market crashes, and casualties in war. In Extremistan, the individual can be vastly more important than the collective. The winner-take-all effect is dominant. So, here's the critical mistake most people, including many economists and financial advisors, make. They apply the rules of Mediocristan to Extremistan. They use tools like the bell curve, which works great for measuring height, to try and model financial markets. But the stock market doesn't live in Mediocristan. It lives in Extremistan. A single day, like Black Monday in 1987, when the market fell over 20%, has more impact than years of normal, quiet trading. Using a bell curve to model the market is like trying to use a ruler to measure an earthquake. The tool is fundamentally wrong for the job. This leads us to another one of our brain's tricky habits, the narrative fallacy. We are storytelling machines. Our brains are not built to process raw, complex data. They are built to find simple, coherent stories. We crave cause and effect explanations because they make the world feel understandable and orderly. Think about the financial news. A stock goes up 3%. A reporter will come on and say, "The market rallied today on renewed optimism about a potential interest rate cut." The story sounds plausible. It makes sense. The next day, the same stock falls 3%. The same reporter might say, "The market sold off today as fears of a slowing economy outweighed hopes for an interest rate cut." Again, it sounds plausible, but both are just stories, made up after the fact to explain random fluctuations. The narrative fallacy makes us believe we understand the reasons behind past events, which, as we've discussed, makes us overconfident about our ability to predict the future. We create a neat, tidy story about why a company succeeded, focusing on the brilliant chief executive officer and their 5-point plan. But this story almost always ignores the massive role of luck, timing, and 1,000 other complex factors. The problem is that you can't narrate the future. You can only narrate the past. This constant storytelling blinds us to the possibility of things that don't fit our current narrative. In other words, Black Swans. Let's dig into another concept that works hand in hand with this. The problem of silent evidence. This is a huge one. We form our beliefs and make our decisions based on what we see. But what we see is often a distorted, biased sample of reality. We see the winners. We don't see the losers. Imagine you want to start a restaurant. You look around and see all these successful restaurants packed with happy customers. You study their menus, their decor, their marketing. You think, I can do that. And you conclude that opening a restaurant is a great path to success. What you are not seeing is the graveyard of failed restaurants. For every successful one you see, there are dozens, maybe hundreds, that went out of business within a year. Their stories are silent. Their evidence is buried. This is also known as survivorship bias. History is written by the victors. We study the biographies of wildly successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates to learn the secrets of success. We read about their passion, their vision, their work ethic. We conveniently ignore the thousands of other entrepreneurs who had just as much passion, vision, and work ethic, but who failed. Because we only study the survivors, we dramatically overestimate the role of skill and underestimate the role of pure, dumb luck. There's a great classical story about this. A man named Diagoras was shown a painting in a temple that depicted sailors who had survived a terrible shipwreck. They were shown praying in thanks to the gods for their salvation. The man trying to convince Diagoras of the gods' power pointed to the painting and said, "You see, these men prayed and they were saved." Diagoras famously replied, "Yes, but where are the pictures of those who prayed and then drowned?" We never see the evidence from the drowned. Their prayers are silent. In investing, this means we see the funds that survived and performed well. The funds that blew up and disappeared are, well, gone. Their track records are erased from the databases, leaving us with a falsely rosy picture of how easy it is to beat the market. This brings us to what Taleb calls the Ludic fallacy. The word ludic comes from the Latin word for games. The Ludic fallacy is the mistake of confusing the neat, clean, well-defined randomness of a casino game with the messy, wild, and undefined randomness of real life. In a casino, the rules are known. We know exactly what the probability of rolling a double six is. We can calculate the odds of getting a royal flush in poker. The sources of uncertainty are clear and contained. It's what Taleb calls randomness in a box. Financial modelers and academics love this kind of randomness because you can build beautiful, elegant mathematical models around it. But the real world isn't a casino. The real world's randomness is not in a box. The rules are unknown and they can change without warning. What is the probability of a new, highly contagious virus shutting down the global economy? What are the odds of a geopolitical event causing a sudden oil shock? We have no idea. We don't even know what all the possible outcomes are, let alone their probabilities. It's like playing a game of poker where you don't know how many cards are in the deck. New cards can be added at any time, and the rules about what beats what can change mid-hand. The Ludic fallacy is when we use the models from the casino to navigate the real world. A financial risk model that claims to calculate the value at risk with 99% confidence is a prime example. It's assuming casino-style randomness. The problem is that all the real damage happens in that 1% of cases that the model ignores. The model works perfectly, like the turkey's model of the world, right up until the moment it catastrophically fails. So, if we live in a world dominated by unpredictable black swans, if our brains are wired to mislead us, and if the experts and their models are fundamentally flawed, what on earth are we supposed to do? This might sound a bit depressing, but Taleb's message is ultimately one of empowerment. The goal isn't to predict black swans. He says anyone who claims they can is a charlatan. The goal is to build a life and a portfolio that is robust to negative black swans and exposed to positive black swans. Let's talk about being robust first. It means you are anti-fragile, a concept he develops in a later book. But the seeds are here. It means you can take a hit and not be wiped out. How do you do that in your finances? By avoiding situations where a single event can cause you catastrophic, irreversible harm. The biggest mistake is taking on too much hidden risk, especially with leverage or debt. You might be making steady returns for years. But you are fragile if a sudden market drop could lead to a margin call that wipes out your entire account. You're the turkey. The key is to always think about consequences, not probabilities. Forget trying to guess how likely a market crash is. Instead, ask yourself, if the market crashed by 50% tomorrow, what would happen to me? Would I be financially ruined? Would I be forced to sell everything at the bottom? If the answer is yes, then your strategy is too fragile, regardless of how improbable you think a crash is. You don't get on a plane if you're told there's a 1% chance the engine will explode, even though it's 99% safe. The consequence of that 1% is unacceptable. Taleb's practical solution for investing is something he calls the Barbell strategy. It's beautifully simple and counterintuitive. Imagine a barbell that weightlifters use. It has weights on the two ends and almost nothing in the middle. Your investment portfolio should look like that. On one side of the barbell, you put the vast majority of your capital, say 85 or even 90%, into extremely safe, boring investments. Think of things like cash, treasury bills, or short-term government bonds. This is your protection against negative black swans. If the market implodes, this part of your portfolio is safe. It won't make you rich, but it will ensure you survive. This is your do not lose pile. Now for the other side of the barbell. You take the remaining small portion of your capital, that 10 or 15%, and you invest it in highly speculative, high-risk, high-reward ventures. This is your moonshot portfolio. This could be investing in a handful of biotech startups, buying shares in very small, innovative companies, or even speculating on new technologies. The key here is that your downside is strictly limited. The most you can possibly lose is the small amount you invested, but your upside is potentially massive and unlimited. If one of these speculative bets hits a positive black swan, if one of those tiny companies becomes the next Amazon or Google, the returns can be 100 to 1 or even 1,000 to 1. The single success on this side of the barbell can have a massive positive impact on your overall wealth, more than making up for all the small losses from the other speculative bets that went to zero. What if the barbell strategy avoid? It avoids the middle. It avoids the medium-risk investments that most financial advisors push, like many balanced mutual funds or corporate bonds. Taleb argues this middle ground is the most dangerous place to be. These investments give you exposure to huge downside from a negative black swan, but they don't offer the explosive, unlimited upside of the speculative side. He calls this picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. You make small, steady gains for a while, and then one day, the steamroller of a black swan comes along and flattens you. This barbell logic can be applied to many areas of life, not just investing. Think about your career. A safe job at a large corporation might seem like the middle of the barbell, but is it really safe? You could be laid off in a corporate restructuring, a negative black swan for your personal finances. A barbell strategy for a career might be to have a stable, reasonably secure main job, the safe side, while spending your evenings and weekends working on a passion project or a small side business, the speculative side. The side business might fail, but if it takes off, it could change your life. This leads to another key takeaway: the importance of redundancy and avoiding over-optimization. In our culture, efficiency is king. Businesses try to cut every ounce of fat, run just-in-time inventories, and squeeze every last drop of productivity from their systems. This looks great on a spreadsheet in normal times, but an over-optimized system is incredibly fragile. A company with zero extra inventory is super efficient until a single ship gets stuck in a canal and its entire supply chain grinds to a halt. A person who schedules every minute of their day is highly productive until an unexpected emergency. A sick child, a broken down car throws their entire fragile system into chaos. Redundancy is the opposite of this. It's having extra cash in the bank for emergencies, a second source of income, a backup server, a pantry with extra food. It might look inefficient to a spreadsheet, but redundancy is what allows you to survive a black swan. It's a form of insurance against the unknown. It's about building buffers into your life. Finally, Taleb's work is a powerful call for a certain kind of intellectual humility. It's about being deeply skeptical of anyone who claims to be able to predict the future, especially in complex domains like economics and politics. He famously showed that the forecasts of so-called experts are often no better, and sometimes worse, than random chance. The problem isn't just that they are wrong. The problem is that we believe them and build our plans around their flawed predictions, making us more vulnerable. Instead of listening to forecasts, we should look at how fragile or robust people's positions are. Don't ask a fund manager what they think the market will do next year. Ask them what would happen to their fund if the market dropped 40%. Their answer will tell you everything you need to know about how seriously they take the possibility of a black swan. So to wrap this all up, The Black Swan is a profound and unsettling book. It tells us that history is not a smooth, predictable march forward, but a series of jolts and jumps driven by massive, unexpected events. It reveals that our minds are full of biases: the narrative fallacy, survivorship bias, the Ludic fallacy, that make us blind to this fundamental reality. We live in Extremistan, but act as if it's the gentle, predictable world of Mediocristan. But the message is not one of despair. It is a guide to navigating an uncertain world. It's about shifting our focus from the impossible task of prediction to the practical task of preparation. It's about embracing a strategy like the barbell that protects us from catastrophic failure while giving us a ticket to ride the wave of positive surprises. It's about understanding that what we don't know is far more important than what we do know. The world will continue to throw black swans at us. They are an inherent part of how things work. You can't stop them, and you can't see them coming. Stop trying to find the next black swan and start building your arc instead.